The Distinguished Service Award is the highest honor awarded by the tax section. The award is reserved for individuals who have had a distinguished career in taxation and who have provided an aspirational standard for all tax lawyers to emulate. And it is my honor and pleasure to recognize our 2024 Distinguished Service Award recipient, Richard Dick Lipton. You will find a detailed summary of Dick's career at your table, but I would like to mention some of the highlights before recognizing him for his remarks. Dick was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, and had a passion for tax law throughout his education and through his entire career. He received his undergraduate degree from Amherst College and his law degree from the University of Chicago, where he had the great privilege to study with the preeminent tax law scholar, Walter Blum. Dick went on to clerk for Judge Cynthia Hall of the U.S. Tax Court, and then to a Chicago law firm where he met Sharon King. And thanks to Sharon's mentorship, Dick was introduced to the meetings of the ABA tax section. And I just want to pause and say, I think all of us can look back to somebody who got us involved in the tax section. It's really to hear people's creation stories of how they came to the tax section. The similarity and the consistency is just amazing, and Dick is no exception to that. He quickly rose in the section to helm various committees and task forces amid the passage of the Tax Reform Act of 1986. In 1990, Dick was elected to the section's council, where he worked closely with long-term executive director of the tax section, Christine Brunswick, who many of us remember so fondly. Together, they were able to establish a measure of financial independence for the tax section from the larger American Bar Association, and that has allowed us over the years to support pro bono initiatives, the Law Student Tax Challenge, and programs that encourage young lawyers to be active in the tax section. Over the years, Dick has served an astounding 34 years as a member of the tax section's council. That is a record like Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak that is unassailable. Those roles have included serving as chair from 2001 to 2002, and as a delegate to the ABA's House of Delegates from 2005 to 2021. Currently, Dick is distinguished to serve on the American Bar Association's Board of Governors. He has provided valuable knowledge and mentoring to many section leaders, definitely including yours truly. Dick's time in private practice started in corporate tax, but he was soon approached to advise on a partnership tax issue. And again, with impeccable timing, as he was getting into the partnership field, the IRS ruled that LLCs should be taxed as partnerships, greatly expanding and simplifying the use of partnership structures in business transactions. Dick spent the remainder of his career as a partnership tax lawyer, including the last 20 years with Baker & McKenzie, where he has continued to indulge his passion for partnership taxation and the most effective tax planning for his clients. Dick has time and time again demonstrated an intense dedication to the profession and to the drive to change it for the better, as well as to an abiding and sincere interest in the growth and success of this tax section. For this, and for many other reasons, it is my honor and pleasure to recognize Dick. And I will say this, in the history of the world, going back to the beginning of time, and going forward to the end of the universe, there will never be a person who has won both the Distinguished Services Award from the tax section and who also has a National Football League Super Bowl championship ring. And that, my friends, is Dick Lipton. Thank you.
I just have to say, completely extemporaneously, I discussed with my wife whether I should wear the Super Bowl ring today, and I didn't. And now I'm feeling really sort of dumb. Oh, well. But at least it's one of the little betterments I had out of representing professional sports franchises and the owners thereof. On top of that, I not only have a Super Bowl ring, I have a Stanley Cup ring as too. So folks, you may want to reconsider your clients and your careers. There are other possibilities. I am, like Gwen, very honored to be receiving this award. I think back and knew quite well a lot of the prior recipients, people like Jack Nolan, Jim Holden, Marty Ginsburg, Ken Gideon, Larry Gibbs, Jerry Cohn. These were the people that when I was a younger lawyer, I looked up to. And I am exceedingly honored and humbled to be included in a group with them. There are a few people I want to thank, of course. I want to start with thanking Baker McKenzie, my firm. They have supported me while I've done all this work involving the American Bar Association. We've got Dan, Maher, Alexandra, Sam, and I especially have to call out Leah. Leah, who's here, has worked her entire career with me, and I can assure you, without her support, I wouldn't be standing here as well. Second, I want to thank all my friends in the ABA, including but not limited to my fellow partnership in real estate junkies. Yes, the word junkie is definitely appropriate. A lot of them are here, and I really can't thank you enough. We could just use a bunch of first names: Bill, Dennis, Ruddy, Chuck, Scott, Pam, Paige, Armando, Larry, Jim, Eric, Lou, Todd, Steve, and too many more to name. You all know who you are. These have become some of my very best friends, and it's so great to be here with you. Most importantly, they've made this a whole lot of fun, and that's the reason we all do this. I want to acknowledge my children who all came in for this: Tom, Ann, Martin, and Tricia, and my daughter-in-law, Sarah. They all flew in for this, and I appreciate it. I would add that the other three in-laws are taking care of my grandkids. That is a far better usage of their time than sitting here, but it was all appropriate. And last, and by far most importantly, I want to thank my wonderful wife, Jane. We'll celebrate our 43rd anniversary later this month. I almost misspoke. Boy, never lived that one down. And many of you know her, and no one knows how she's put up with me that long. I can't express how much I love her and how much her support has meant for me for all these years. I certainly would not be standing here without her love and support. I'm going to keep my remarks brief. I want to make two major points. The first one very much ties in on what Gwen said. My view of involvement in the ABA is very simple. It's get involved, stay involved, and be the change. You need to get involved. And I want to speak to younger lawyers, and I want to speak to the more senior lawyers. On the younger lawyers, as Scott said, if it weren't for Sharon King, I don't know if I would be here. She forced me to come to my first meeting. But once I came to the meeting, I started to get involved in doing projects. And from doing projects, I went on to appear on some programs. And from doing some programs, I started to chair things. and I got to know people. And all of the younger lawyers who are sitting here, I cannot urge you strongly enough to get involved and start doing the work. And as a result of the work, you will get to meet more and more people. They will become your friends. They will become your colleagues. And interestingly, they will even potentially become the sources of your business as time goes on. I know in many law firms, people say only go out and do client promotion. I didn't do that. I use the ABA, and that has been the source of my business over my career, and I'm really happy for that. But just as much as talking to the younger lawyers, I want to talk to the more senior lawyers. Over the last 10 to 20 years, I've seen a very distressing trend that the law firms aren't supporting the younger lawyers to get involved with the ABA. There's more important things in life than billable hours, and long-term career success depends upon getting involved in organizations like this. And it doesn't have to be just this. It could be a state and local bar. It's some other professional organization. It could be doing pro bono work. There are more important things than just doing billable work. And I want all of the older, more senior lawyers to recognize and to get their firms to recognize that this is really an important part of life. And hopefully the success of many of the other lawyers out here, particularly the younger ones, can be ensured by having the older lawyers support them doing more things. And then it's be the change. In organizations, you actually have to sometimes rock the boat. Many of you are, well, I don't think there are many in this room who remember, but back in the 70s and beforehand, this organization always met on this weekend and always met on Mother's Day. It was traditional. When I became vice chair back in '93, I said, and by the way, at that time, my youngest, Tricia, was all of 4 years old. I said there was no way I was going to spend Mother's Day sitting in a conference room in Washington. One, my wife would kill me, and she's nodding her head yes, and two, it made no sense. So in the end, I pushed through a resolution through the council to get rid of Mother's Day meetings. That one passed 24-1, and Dick Shaw, former chair, will never live down his vote against motherhood. The following year, I decided that we really needed to address the financial situation of the section, and I suggested we get sponsorship. It had never been done in the entire American Bar Association, ever. And I suggested to the council that we adopt a sponsorship idea. That idea was voted down 24-1, you know who the one was, and the then chair, Al O'Neill, said, "Over my dead body, will future chairs ever get up at the podium at the plenary and acknowledge sponsors?" Right, Scott? Right. The following year, I came in with a signed sponsorship contract, and it passed the council 24-1. Al was a man of his convictions. The only other change that, well, I did a number of other things, but the thing I'm actually proudest of, and it relates to the prior honoree, is when I became chair, this section had no pro bono activities. There was no pro bono award, there was no pro bono committee, there was nothing. And the reason the first Janet Sprague's Award, or its predecessor, was in 2002 is that's when I was chair, and I insisted that, again, there was more than just practice. There was pro bono. So I'm really proud of that. Things need to change. If you take a look at it, the meeting format, Scott was addressing the way times are going to change. I think it's really important for everybody to give it a chance, because some of these changes are necessary long-term, and we've changed things over the decades. The second thing I want to talk about very briefly is that tax lawyers, and I'm a practitioner, I'm a planner, need to stand up for what they believe in. A long time ago, I wrote an article which I based on one of my favorite comic strip characters Pogo. And in that article, which I entitled, "We Have Met the Enemy and He Is Us," I pointed out that a lot of tax lawyers, and I hate to say it also tax accountants, weren't willing to proceed until they got guidance from the Internal Revenue Service. They weren't ever willing to really think through a problem, think through the regs and the law, and say, this is the right answer, and trust your own judgment. And when I wrote that, what struck me is the lawyers, advisors need to believe in themselves and believe in their judgment. And when there is no guidance on an issue, you don't need to be frozen. Just think the problem through, whether you're a planner or a litigator, and come to the right answer. As another prior winner of this award, Carl Ferguson, said in his Griswold lecture, how will a judge rule? Think through what's the right answer, and don't just wait to get guidance from the Internal Revenue Service. When I train lawyers in my firm, which I've done for many, many years, I point out there is a rule for this. It's called the rule of the treasure of the Sierra Madre. Guidance, guidance. We don't need no stinking guidance. The second corollary of this rule comes in dealing with the government. I've always tried to be respectful of the government, but lawyers, and particularly the section and tax lawyers, need to stand up for what they believe is right. Too often, we don't tell the government bluntly enough what they're doing is not misguided or just plain wrong. The other day, I attended a session here where a representative of the government said, this is what we're going to propose, and we don't want you to tell us it's wrong, just give us constructive suggestions. Well, I'm sorry. Telling you it's wrong is constructive when it's wrong. As those of you who've gotten to know me well, I have never been subtle in making these types of comments to our friends in the government, as Pam so well put it in the write-up. I'm just hoping that future lawyers will carry on that tradition. I always viewed myself as the loyal opposition. I never served in government other than as a tax court clerk, and I'm happy of that because it gave me the ability to stand back, look at tax situations, take into account what's the right answer, and then try to advocate to get there. So I'm very glad to have spent my entire career working in the tax area, but most importantly, working with the tax section and all my friends in the tax section. Thank you very much.